Hi, y'all. I feel like I sound like Paula Deen when I say that, but it is what it is. Anyway, I wanted to do a video today. I'm going to title mine Comparative Tarot. It's sort of a video response to Gypsy. I don't know if she says it Gypsy Chic or Gypsy Chick, but I will link her channel down here for you because she's doing a really fantastic series of videos on she's comparing the major arcana in different decks, and she's done like a rating system, so it's how closely it matches up with the Rider-Waite-Smith deck and how many of the elements show in other decks, and it's really fascinating, and I've learned just a whole lot. So I'm not going to go through everything that she went through, but I'm just going to show you a comparison of the decks that I have of the first. I think she's done the first 4 cards, and I'm probably not gonna do them all. I'll probably do like 2 per video or something, so I can break it up a little bit, and by the end you're not, drooling in boredom. But it was really interesting, and then somebody else did a video response to her, and I don't remember who it was. I'm sorry if I find them. I'll link them. And I sort of found that because I guess you can't link your VRs anymore because of the way Google has messed up YouTube so badly, but I'm not sure how I found that other video, but it was fascinating because you get to see the major arcana in different decks, and I think that's really fascinating, not only learning the different symbology that is used in different decks, but then sort of determining, if you're I would say deck hoarder, but let me just come out and say it. If you're a deck hoarder like I am, then, you might find another deck that you feel like you have to have, and so it's also interesting in that respect. So I'm going to try to go through the Fool and the Magician, I think, this time. And let's just go ahead and get started. The first deck I have to show is the Mary Hanson Roberts. These are very small cards. These are the size, or I shouldn't say that. They're smaller, about the size of a regular standard poker deck of playing cards. So these are really nice. She's also the one that did the Universal Weight. She did the coloring for the Universal Weight deck, and that's the weight deck that I have, and I'll actually show you that here in just a minute. And maybe I should pull those out and show those next instead. Anyway, she did the coloring for those, and it's not quite, her deck is very, I don't want to say pastels, but it's very colored pencil-y, very, it has a very sort of European Renaissance fair, gentle sort of look to it, and it's beautiful, and it's really wonderful if you have smaller hands or you're just looking for a smaller deck. Now, all of her images are closer up like this. They're not as far away as you would see, for example, in a Rider-Waite. This is actually the Universal Rider-Waite. So as you can see, it's like a closer sort of snapshot, if you will, of the scenes. So we have the Fool, we have the White Rose. We don't have the companion animal in this one. But we get the sense of being on the cliff because of the cliffs back here, although we don't get the same sense as you do in a regular Rider-Waite that the Fool is about to step off of the cliff. We don't have the feather in the cap, but we do have the bag of experiences and the wand he's using as a carrying stick here. So that is the Fool in the Mary Hanson Roberts deck. The next one I'm going to show you is that Universal Rider-Waite-Smith that I was just talking about. I think they call it the Universal Rider-Waite, but I always think that Pamela Coleman Smith really should have a hell of a lot more credit than she gets. But this is also colored by Mary Hanson Roberts, so I just showed you her deck. So this deck, I wanted a Rider-Waite, but I did not want the original Rider-Waite because, like I discussed in my previous video, the yellows and stuff were just painful to my eyes, and I just could not see spending money on a deck that I hated the colors in just because it was the standard, what have you, excuse me. I just got home from work and I have coffee, so, priority. Sorry, folks. But I liked this one. The coloring in this one is much, much nicer and much softer, and you'll see, as you'll see in the next couple cards, the yellows, number 1, aren't as hideous, and number 2 aren't as frequent, aren't as overwhelming in the background images. So this is exactly the same image as a regular Rider-Waite-Smith deck, only colored much, much better. This is a standard tarot size card. Ugly white borders like they do on a lot of tarot cards, but in this it's not quite as hideous and odious as I find it in other decks. Okay. The next one is the Robin Wood deck, and actually that was my very first deck. I don't know what happened to that original one, but I repurchased it recently, and to be honest with you, I have very mixed feelings about it now. not as thrilled with it as I was the first time I bought it. It's still it's a good deck, and I wouldn't say that it wasn't. But interestingly, I found it not as enjoyable this time as I did the last time. Here we have more of the court jester kind of look, in a sense, with the clothing. But we have the companion animal. Obviously, we have hideous white borders. I didn't remember the borders being quite this bad on these, but we have the fool in this one playing an instrument. We have the feather in the cap. Some ribbons coming from the bag in the back. And in this one, we don't get the sense of having a wand, really, or a stick that's carrying the bag. So that's the Robin Wood. And in all the Robin Wood cards, you get this, just really quickly show you this ribbon down here that tells you the name of the card. The next deck is the Joie de Vivre. I love Paulina Cassidy's deck. Somebody sent me, I had wanted the Paulina deck for a long time, and then a friend sent it to me because she didn't like hers. And I fell in love with it. It's one of my favorite decks. And then I bought the Joie de Vivre because I love Paulina Cassidy's art. Again, I think her art is not assisted by these white borders. Here we have sort of a companion animal type deal here. We have the wand that's also used as a carrying stick, the bag of experiences. We also have another sort of walking stick back here, so that's different. We have, of course, the cliff, and Paulina Cassidy's art is just stunning. It really is, and there's a lot of symbolism and just a lot of things going on in her artwork that you just don't see in other decks, and it's really stunning. And I think both the Paulina Cassidy decks would have been really greatly assisted if they had been large decks in the vein of the Druidcraft Tarot. I think they would have just been stunning. Again, like with the Shadowscapes one that I've talked about in other tarot review videos. I did actually get rid of that deck because while I thought it was beautiful, the images were just too small, and it was very frustrating, I found. This is the Paulina Tarot. Again, same artist. So you can see that these are really similar, but you can see the differences between the Joie de Vivre and the Paulina Tarot. The coloring in the whole Joie de Vivre deck is different. The borders are a little bit smaller in this one. But you can see that the overall feel is very different in both decks. So the Paulina has a little bit of a darker feel, as you would expect for something titled Joie de Vivre. The colors are brighter, and it's a little bit of a happier feeling. So in the Paulina Tarot, we have, again, the companion animals in the forms of, oh no, we have the one down here, my bad. We have the wand in the form of the walking stick, and the bag in this card he's actually carrying. And you have sort of that court jester kind of feel with the clothes that he's wearing in this, and of course the walking along the edge of the cliff and not paying attention to where he's going. This is Crystal Visions Tarot, Jennifer Galasso. I won this tarot, and I love it. She's fantastic. Her art is beautiful. Her art would have been highly enhanced by either black borders, which are problematic as well. I talked about that in my last video, or no borders at all, but it is what it is. This one's very different. We have a female in this image versus a male. We do have she's actually stepped off the cliff, and we have butterflies here, and one who's like kind of holding her dress like, hey, yo, you're stepping off the cliff, you might want to back up. Anyway, it's a very different feel. I love the way in the background it has these stormy cloud image. Gives sort of a different feel to this image. A little bit of a darker mood to this image. This deck is beautiful. I don't read with it much. I don't know why. It's a beautiful deck. Even the backs are just stunning. I don't know why I don't read with this more. I don't think there's any particular reason. I don't think there's a card in this deck that I dislike. And I think it's one of the few decks that it does not have a card that I just dislike. This is the Witches Tarot by Ellen Dugan. I love this deck as well. This one's very different. It has that sort of collage-y, computer processed feel, but with actual images of people. We have more of the traveler feel in the clothing. We have the animal here, but he's not trying to alert the fool. He's on the edge of the cliff. The background images are really nice. And the bag, the feather, and the wand in the form of the stick that's carrying the bag of his experiences. Sorry, either there's a glare or a shadow, and I don't know how to get the best angle there. This is one of my favorite decks ever. This is the only deck that I can honestly say picked me. I found it in a store, and I've done a review on it. Found it in a metaphysical store in Albuquerque, and as soon as I picked up the deck, I knew I couldn't lay it down. I knew it had to go home with me. This is the Morgan Greer Tarot, and what I love this deck. This is so cool. Not only is it borderless, which, as you can see, totally helps the images, totally makes it look better, but this, a lot like the Mary Hanson Roberts, is a closer snapshot of every card, and so not only is it borderless, but it's closer up, so you get more of a close to the person view. But that being said, despite that, there's nothing missing in this from the original Rider-Waite-Smith. You still have the companion animal trying to get his attention. You still get the feeling of him stepping off the cliff. Right here, you get the edge of the cliff here, and then further back, you get a little bit of that as well. You get the image of the wand as the carrying stick, the white rose, the feather in the cap, the bag of his experiences back here, and the sun up here. So you're really missing nothing as opposed to the Rider-Waite-Smith images, only this is just a much better image. It's much better looking. The fact that the image the fact that the cards don't have borders, you can see the difference between how that really helps a deck and how borders on a deck hamper it. And I'm going to show you another image that will illustrate that as well. This is the Illuminati Tarot. This is probably my favorite tarot deck right now that I have in my collection, probably seconded by the Morgan Greer. I like them all, but again, another borderless deck, which is just the way they should all come. Gypsy, I'm so sorry, I don't know whether it's Chique or Chique, talked about this card, so I'm not going to go into this a whole bunch, but there's really nothing missing, excuse me, as compared to the image in the Rider-Waite-Smith. But you also get the addition of just stunning, stunning, stunning backgrounds. And this is what I was talking about in my previous video about how, I don't know if that went blank for you, my apologies, Mac, never purchasing another Apple product. How the images in the background are, from I think all of the cards, just as stunning as the images in the foreground. And here we see a much more elaborate dress to the Fool, so that's interesting as well. I think it just really helps the image. And even in the, you can see this, even in the fabric of his cape or whatever it's supposed to be, traveling cloak, what have you, you know, you can see texture and images, and this deck is amazing. Okay, on to the next. This is the World Spirit Tarot. This is really interesting. I don't know who the artist is, and I'm not going to pull the book down right now, but I'm not sure you can still get this, but it was a really cool deck. All of the artwork is done by woodcuts and then stamped and then colored, and I don't remember how it's colored. My apologies for not remembering that. I never ever read with this deck, and I don't remember why. I remember I used to use it a lot, and then I was doing some stuff, and it just really started to irritate me. Black borders, which are marginally better than white borders, but as you can see in some of these cards where you might not be able to see well on the camera, the black edges are starting to wear. Here we get the companion animal again, and we get the sense of the Fool. Again, it's a woman in this card, of sort of messing around with the birds and not paying attention to where she's going. And it's off the roof of the house this time as opposed to off of the cliff, which, you know, depending on how tall the place is, could have the same effect. So anyway, those are the Fool cards. Let's see, we've done 13 minutes. We can go ahead and go through the Magician cards. So we'll just go back the other way, since I have the deck set out this way. This is the Magician. Also, this is the World Spirit Tarot again. This I thought was a very interesting Magician, because you sort of get the feel more of a, instead of a European standing at an altar rite, you get the rite, and I mean R-I-T-E, you get more of the feeling of sort of a more tribal, I don't want to say voodoo or voodoo because I don't know much about that, but you get more of a tribal feeling from this card than you do. All the symbols are still there, including the lemniscate right here. And you get some additional symbols, and then you see the interesting work that almost looks like it's on blackboards in a sense. Some drums. And you regularly get a sense of movement from this card, which is interesting. What you don't get, what I don't see, is the as above, so below as much in this one. but you really get a sense of movement from this card, which is an interesting take on the Magician, I think. Back to the Tarot Illuminati. This is the Alchemist, and I absolutely love this card. And what I love the most about this is that there's an edition of a book, and I really love that, you know, we're looking through. I don't know about you guys, but when I want to learn about something, the first place I go is to a book. And I love books for the fact that they hold information and they hold things that are good for learning, good for your soul, good for transformation even. How many of you haven't, how many of us haven't read books that were transformative? Anyway, so you have the lemniscate up here this time, wand, all the other symbols. And they all, you get this feeling too of the energy, because the way that the lemniscate is done and the energy around the other symbols really, I think, helps to foster that, again, that feeling of movement and energy. And then underneath the altar here, it's really cool. There's a skull and some other things. It's like almost like that's the chest of goodies down there or something. It's a really cool card. And I think it was a really neat way to do it. And I think the addition of adding him looking through the book for information was brilliant. Morgan Greer. Welcome to the 1970s, you know, kind of Burt Reynolds tarot, but despite the fact that he's got the longer hair and the mustache and it's very 70s looking, you have the same thing that you're going to find in a Rider-Waite-Smith type deck. You also have the red roses, the white lilies, what is it, passion and purity, what have you. The same wand, the same hand, some gestures you can see as above, so below. And you get the sense of him sort of being down in a protected space here, the way the walls in the back are. You have the lemniscate here, so you're not missing that. And then all the other symbols. And you're not missing anything, I don't think, that you would get in a Rider-Waite-Smith, only you're getting the addition of being closer up and a borderless card. Witch's Tarot, Ellen Dugan. Here we see a lot of energy too. We see his cloak and his hair blowing. We have the lemniscate here, red roses. White lilies. This has the addition of some little fairies, which, yeah, I have mixed feelings about. All the other stuff is right here. There are even some symbols on his cloak. And I really like the way that you get the energy feeling here of the clouds blowing and moving, and the way his hair and his cloak are blowing. And yet down here we see that it's more still, and it seems calmer down at the bottom. And of course, as above, so below. The Crystal Visions Tarot. This is very different. You don't get the sense of an altar at all. You have all the symbols, including the lemniscate in his belt. But you sort of get the sense here of being outside the confines of space and time, in a sense. You also get an interesting helmet, sort of reminiscent of Thor. I don't know why that makes me think of that, but well, I know why it makes me think of it, but anyway, very different Magician card, not my favorite. I don't think it has a power in the energy of other cards. I don't think it's bad, but for me, it just doesn't have the same power and energy as other Magician cards. Crystal Visions Tarot, that's what that one was. Paulina Tarot by Paulina Cassidy. We have the Magician. This is going to be difficult for you to see because there's just so much going on here. The symbols and stuff are down here, just like Gypsy Chique, I don't know, talked about. I'm so sorry, I'll get that right someday. I'll have to ask her how she says it. And the Magician in this one has a really distinctive female feel to it, in the way, in the head and the neck and the hair. You know, I couldn't say for sure, but you get a very different feeling. And you still get the feeling of energy and stuff. Here it just seems softer and quieter. There's also a really cool owl in her hair. And in this deck, it's really neat because in a lot of the cards in this deck, the hat is going to have a lot to do, or the hair, with the symbolism of the card. Really interesting deck. But there's just so much going on here, you're not going to be able to see all of that. The Joie de Vivre, also by Paulina Cassidy. Here we get the distinct feeling of the Mad Hatter, right, from Alice in Wonderland. So very different, and in each one of his hands then he has the different symbols of the Magician. And you get the feeling of movement and energy here, and the way the little butterflies, there's butterflies, stars, hearts, floating around here. then let's get down here, and the bunny. And I think this is also that, what is the snake eating its tail? Oro something, I don't know. There's a name for that symbol. I don't know the name for it, my bad. Magician and the Robin Wood. This one is one of my favorite magician cards ever because not only is it a little symbol, a more pagan symbolism, but it's also, he looks pleased with himself, like he's happy about it. All the other ones are so serious and so, or not all the other ones, a lot of the other magician cards you see are just so serious and stoic, and I really like the feeling of this one. I've always liked this one. You have the same black and white pillars that you're going to get in the High Priestess card. Let me show you that really quickly so you can see. Oh, wrong card. Jeez, really, honestly. So in the High Priestess card, good grief. Spatial reasoning. You have the white tree and the black tree, and you get the sense of the two pillars that are in more traditional cards that I'll show you here in just a second. And you have all the symbols. This is a little more close up. But you also have the idea of the stag, right? The horned god. More of that pagan image from this. You have the white lilies, and I think he's got red roses on his, embroidered on his. I could have done without the, chest hair and stuff, but it's all good. Universal, pardon me, Rider-Waite. Traditional Rider-Waite Smith image. As above, so below. You know what? You don't really get that sense in the Robin Wood tarot deck as much as above, so below. He's holding the lemniscate in his hand here, but you don't get so much the as above, so below symbolism there. Just dawned on me. Sometimes I don't see stuff, and it never occurred to me to do this exercise until I saw those videos, and I thought, wow, that's a really genius exercise, because you're just adding symbolism to your database when you're looking at all your tarot comparatively. So this is the exact same thing as a Rider-Waite Smith deck. Again, we have in his belt the snake eating his tail, whatever that symbol is called. We have the lemniscate here. We have the red roses, white lilies, and then the other symbols here. What we don't have here so much is the feeling of energy. I guess sort of an aura around him in a sense, but we don't have that feeling of other things in the scene moving. It's very static, the scene itself. And then the Mary Hansen Robert deck, excuse me. We have as above, so below, red roses, white lilies, and here we have the symbols. This is not one of my favorite cards, but here again we get that sense of energy, sort of, because his cloak is blowing, so is his hair, so we get the lemniscate. I don't know if you can see that. It's right here above his head. Yeah, you can see it. And it's a little bit of a closer image, but we get more of that feeling of energy moving with this card than we do with the original Rider-Waite Smith. Okay, so that's Fool and Magician. I'm going to cut this video off. It's been long enough. I'm going to do another video really quickly comparing the High Priestess and the Empress. If you're still with me, thanks for watching. See you soon.